All right, hey everybody, my name is Mark O'Connor. I'm the director of the jazz program at the University of Indianapolis. And I'm here today to help you guys get your All-State Jazz Etudes, your Junior All-State Jazz Ensemble Audition Etudes together. So, you know, certainly along with your band directors who I'm extremely thankful for. You know, I just want to kind of basically add to what they've already told you. And we'll go from there. So the first thing I want to do, you know, the first thing that you guys need to do on the audition tape is to play a chromatic scale, full range. For you guys, for 7th through 9th graders, who this video is for. I have a couple of recommendations for all of you saxophone players, and that's to either play, you know, a 2-octave scale from low D up to high D, or low C up to high C, or if you want to play the entire range, if you're able to play the entire range from low B flat all the way up to F and then back down, that's great. Just make sure it's with good round sound and good technique. So you know, I'm not gonna demonstrate that now because I know that you guys already know how to do that. But anyway, so the next thing I want to talk about is the easy swing etude. And before I talk about it, I want to go ahead and play it for you guys with the play along. So here we go with the easy swing etude. Okay, so one of the things that I wanted to talk about this etude is that as professional musicians, as professional jazz musicians, there's a lot of things that we add to the written music to give it life. Dynamics, refined articulations, and you know, just some overall things, especially you know, some things that aren't included in the music, as I mentioned. So the first thing I want to talk about is that I recommend that you guys actually turn your staccatos into marcatos. And I also want to mention too that if you want to take a look at my exact recommendations for all of these additions and or slight changes, it'll all be on the handout below in the description of this YouTube video. So let's talk about the first phrase. So all of those quarter notes that have staccatos on them in bars 1 and 2, I'm turning into marcatos. So we go from the syllable of dit on staccatos to dot on marcatos. So I'm thinking about this as do 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 dot 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 do dot dot. So we want to be thinking about that. Marcato means accented and short or separated. So it's kind of both, the best of both worlds, I guess, short and accented. The other thing that I want to talk about too is on the second bar, on the note that comes in on the and of 2, we want to add a forte piano crescendo. And we also want to stop that note right on the beginning of bar 3, right on that chord rest there. So let me play that phrase without the play along for you guys. And I think you'll hear what I'm talking about. So this is, like I said, this is without the play along. 1, 2, I mentioned that I'm stopping the note with my tongue. That's one of the beautiful things about playing in jazz ensemble. We get to stop notes with our tongue. We don't get to do that in any other music, and we want to make sure that the tongue stop, the end of the note that we stop our reed with our tongue with is really clear. It needs to be just as clear, the tongue stop does, as the beginning of the note. So I'm going to play that one more time for you so that you can really hear it. And I think it's really beneficial for you guys to listen to me play it without the play along so that you can really hear the saxophone part of things. So one more time I'll play that 2-bar phrase. 1, a 2, a 1, 2, ready, and. Okay, so I hope that makes sense with all of you guys. I'm just looking at the rest of the etude, and there's some other things that I want to point out. First of all, if we start on the and of 4 in the 3rd bar of that first line, I'm thinking about tonguing. I'm thinking about tonguing the ands. What I call the upbeat articulation pattern. I used to call it the jazz articulation pattern. Because it's one of the most common articulation patterns in jazz. So I'm going to play just that part. I'm going to play do, do, dot, right? So here we go, without the play along. 1, 2, 3. Like that. So do, do, dot. And I should mention too that I'm singing all of this stuff, not because I'm a great singer, but because it helps me kind of get my articulation together if I sing it. So I would encourage all of you to do that too. I encourage all of you to sing all of your parts, even though it feels kind of weird. Okay, let's see. The only other things that I'm doing differently, and you'll see them in the marked up handout that's linked below in this video. The only other thing, look at the 3rd line down, and on that and of 2, I'm adding a sideways accent to it. So, da-do, dee-da, and then any of these long notes, I'm adding a forte piano crescendo, and if there's a rest that follows it, I'm adding that tongue stop. Okay, so I'm going to play it without the play along, just the last 2 lines. And in terms of the long notes, if it's a dotted quarter or longer, that's when I add that forte piano crescendo. Again, it just gives life to the music. So here's the last 2 lines without the play along. 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and of course the last thing there on those last 2 bars, especially for the tenor saxophone players, you get to play some low notes, some really nice, big, fat low notes, and please don't shy away from those notes, those are some beautiful notes on the tenor. So let's go on to the swing etude. This is actually just one chorus through a B-flat concert blues. So I'll demonstrate it first and then we'll talk about it. Okay, so in that particular run through, I wasn't really thinking too much, but that's mainly because I've done a whole lot of work, a whole lot of work on this progression. B-flat blues, and as you get further into it, B-flat rhythm changes are the 2 forms of music in jazz that you'll work on the rest of your life. So it's really cool. And in fact, I should mention too that the first tune I played, Tenor Madness, was a B-flat blues as well. So that's be listening to the recordings. That's super helpful. Okay, now for this part, you have a couple of different options in terms of improvising on this one. The first thing that you can do is to play the concert B flat minor blues scale over the entire form, you know. And you know, certainly the benefit of this is that you only have to focus on one scale for the entire thing. And yet at the same time it gives you that bluesy sound. Of course it's called the blues scale because it sounds bluesy. Anyway, you know, that's one thing that I want you guys to think about. So let me demonstrate that with the play along. Okay, and there's certainly a lot of value in playing the blues scale because the blues is at the heart of jazz. Jazz without blues is kind of like, it's kind of like pizza without cheese. You know, to draw a simple analogy, you know, it's kind of like a sandwich without the bread, you know, however you want to think of it, you know, it's that sort of thing. So we definitely want to include that for sure. You know, the next step after that is to play the chord changes, to play the tones of the chords. And we have a few different ways of doing this. I've included on the handout, you know, what you can do on the chord tones themselves. The first thing is just to know that almost all of these chords, except for the concert C minor 7, are dominant 7th chords. And on the handout, I've illustrated, you know, the formula, how you can form these chords. So just refer to that handout, you know. And I also forgot to mention too that if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below on this YouTube video so that you know, so that we can communicate with one another. I'd love to hear, you know, your questions and feedback on this. So I'm going to improvise. I'm actually not going to improvise. I'm going to arpeggiate these chords first, and that's the first step. So I'll go through the play along again with that, just strictly arpeggiating, and I'm using this rhythm through the entire form. So I'm just basically using swing eighth notes, and I'll also include that in the video too. So here we go. I'll do it through the entire form, just strictly arpeggiating the chords. Okay, and so, you know, that's, to me, as a professional musician, that sounds fairly disjunct, you know, fairly not related to one another, you know. So the key now is to relate those chords together. And we can do that, first of all, just by playing, well, I guess the first thing I would say is let's improvise with those chord tones and let's try to connect the chords together a little bit better and not always starting on the root. So let's try that first. Okay, so essentially what I'm doing is I'm looking for common tones between the chords, you know. So be thinking about that. You know, the other thing I would focus on too, that I would recommend that you guys focus on is be thinking about, you know, be thinking about the corresponding scales that go with, which I've also outlined on the handout. On all of these dominant seventh chords, the Mixolydian mode, the fifth mode of the major scale. You could also form it another way, and I'll include that on the handout as well. But you can also think about scale fragments of those Mixolydian modes. So I'll illustrate that now, and I'm really just going to do 1, 2, 3 of each of the corresponding modes. So then the last step I would recommend is to combine all of that together so that we have the blues scale, we have the B-flat, concert B-flat minor blues scale, and we have the chord changes. That's what's most beautiful about jazz, is that we marry the two together, we combine the two together to come up with something that sounds cool, that makes the changes, and it also sounds bluesy. So here's an example of that. This is the last example that I'm going to give you guys. Before I give that example, I'd like to thank you guys for checking out this video. As I said, make sure that you leave comments and questions below, and I'm happy to give you, answer any questions and give you any more advice in preparing for these Junior All-State Jazz Ensemble auditions. So thanks again for joining me. And here is the combination of the two, the B-flat minor blues scale, along with playing the actual chord changes. Thanks again for joining me. Good luck on your auditions.